Let's learn something about American politics. Let's learn some civics, okay? The 1992 presidential campaign, you got Bill Clinton, who's running against Tom Harkin and Paul Songus. In the first primary contest, the Iowa caucus, just like it is this year. Iowa caucus is going to be first. Bill Clinton followed in a distant third behind Iowa Senator Tom Harkin and somebody else. During the campaign for the New Hampshire primary, the Jennifer Flowers scandal comes out. So he's got third place in Iowa. Now it's coming up to the New Hampshire. You can't lose New Hampshire, right? As Clinton fell far behind the former Massachusetts Senator Paul Songus in the New Hampshire polls following Super Bowl 26. Clinton and his wife Hillary went on 60 Minutes to rebuff the charges. Oh, Jennifer Flowers, she's a liar, right? When she was fake rape, right? She said that she got raped, but Hillary's like, oh, that's fake rape. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked too closely into the Jennifer Flowers thing, but she did respond that way. If you care so much about women's rights, how come you didn't care? Anyways. Their television appearance was a calculated risk, but Bill Clinton regained several delegates. He finished second to Songus in the New Hampshire primary, but after trailing badly in the polls, coming within single digits of winning, the media viewed it as a victory. News outlets labeled him the comeback kid for earning a firm second-place finish. He actually called himself the comeback kid. Well, you might want to watch out for the comeback kid. That's what they like to call me. I'm Bill Clinton. Winning the big prizes of Florida and Texas and many of the other southern primaries on Super Tuesday gave Bill Clinton a sizable delegate lead. However, former California governor, ideally, I want Bernie Sanders to win in Iowa, then I want him to win in New Hampshire, then Nevada, and then South Carolina, and then win big on Super Tuesday. And then once he just dominated every single race in the first 16, Hillary just gives up and says, can I be your Secretary of State or something, please? Bernie, give me a break. We need work. Our whole family is in the political atmosphere. So that's what I would like to see, but we won't know 100% until really Super Tuesday, okay? So this is what happens on Super Tuesday. Bill Clinton lost Iowa. Bill Clinton lost. He was on third in Iowa. Then he lost New Hampshire. He was second in New Hampshire. But still, after Super Tuesday, he won a big chunk. He won a whole bunch of them, so he started getting a lead. He was leading after Super Tuesday. So he was losing all these earlier ones. We can learn from Bill Clinton in his 1992 presidential campaign that the first elections do matter. It really weights Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada and South Carolina more than all the other states, but you could lose those and then still come in, Super Tuesday and kick some ass. Former California Governor Jerry Brown was scoring victories, so Jerry Brown was still winning too, and Bill didn't win a significant contest outside of the South. I was like, okay, you're picking up southern states, but what else are you doing? Eventually he got New York. So after a resounding victory in New York City, he shed his image as just a regional candidate. He hadn't been transformed into the consensus candidate. He then secured the Democratic Party nomination, finishing with a victory in Jerry Brown's home state of California. So he became the consensus candidate once he had the momentum on his side. If you remember Hillary versus Obama, Obama just stayed barely out in front of her, but it was enough. Once he got the edge, once he barely started beating Obama got in the lead, he just stayed in the lead until he was able to finish it all out. Another question you want to ask yourself is sort of which one of these candidates are going to go to the gauntlet? Which ones are going to be there the entire 50-state run? You also have to make sure you get on all those ballots, right? There's 50 states, and they all have different requirements. Some of them just want you to pony up some money, some to get signatures. But that's if somebody's just going to be there for Iowa and then drop out and then that's it, well, that's, I want a candidate like Trump. I think Trump would be there to the end. He'd get beat, the first 15, 20, 30 times. He'll still stick it out. His name's still on the ballot. His name's still out there. Well, I got a shot. I got a slight chance until there's mathematically no possible chance whatsoever. Even then, he might stick around. And that means he's got political flack. His political prowess matters. So that's we can learn from the past. I'm not going to. It wouldn't matter to me if Bernie lost the first 4 races. I'm not going to lose heart or start thinking, okay, well, we need to cut our losses and until Super Tuesday, March 1st, 2016. Once March 1st comes around, if he hasn't won any of the elections, then it seems like it's, well, what's the point? What are we doing here? He's, you know, she's already got 15 states on her side, or O'Malley came out of nowhere, and he's got it on his side, right? Mention the idea of a consensus candidate too. So that's their sort of vernacular to say that they're winning. We're the ones winning. So, but essentially, once the person does get the nomination, then they got to reunite the party. They got, you know, thank all the people that you ran against and try to get everybody, you know, included in the party. Then 1860, there was the Democratic. There's the Southern Democrats had broke off from the actual Democrats. And then there's a Constitutional Union Party and some other parties. And John Bell actually wound up taking Kentucky. And then Stephen Douglas was a Democratic voter, and he hardly didn't get anything. And so actually, you know, Breckinridge, he really kicked ass. Breckinridge wound up getting the entire South, but Abraham Lincoln got all the North, and there was plenty more in the North. So that separated the Democratic Party. The heart of the Democratic Party, some of them said, goes to the heart of the Democratic Party. You had Stephen Douglas of Illinois, who the Democrats had selected to run for president, and with Herschel Johnson of Georgia. But the third rump convention, they nominated the Southern Democrats. They nominated John C. Breckinridge for president and Joseph Lane of Oregon. So that split the convention. They went to the convention, then they took all their supporters there. They wanted some reconciliation. It never happened. So they said, fuck it, we're going to just nominate our own people. So that also happened in Kentucky. Kentucky had the same thing. And essentially, I mean, you are fighting this fight, but I would like to think when Bernie Sanders wins, he'll get O'Malley and he'll get Hillary back into, you know, the envelope. We're good Democrats. Let's be, you know, what do you want? What is it that you're looking for? How can I make you happy? And try to unify the Democratic Party. And I don't see much of that really anymore. It happened in 1899 in Kentucky too. William Goble secures the Democratic Party's nomination. Very similar, actually. He's a, you know, populist for the working people, but he's not racist. But John Y. Brown was like, "Fuck that, we're racist, right? We want slavery." And so John Y. Brown separated. He separated into his own party. And so you had two different Democratic nominees, right? You had William Goble and you had John Y. Brown, but since Goble had got it the fair way, he was the actual Democratic nomination, and he wound up trouncing John Y. Brown. So that's something that could happen at a convention. If you don't, you know, he was a consensus-based candidate, and then eventually he trounces him. That's the best way to have just a, you know, unconditional surrender. But if it looks like you're going to lose, then you could probably, you know, cut the, what did I say? But cut your losses. You could cut your losses and try to get a Secretary of State job, or you could cut your losses and you could figure out some way to be relevant, some way to be helpful. I'll give you some speeches if you can give me this job, so that way, you know, you're not just a total loser. But that's our system: winner take all. If you win it all. If you lose, you don't win shit. So, yeah, I mean, if you're in one of the states that don't vote early in Super Tuesday, or one of the first 4 states, don't worry about it. The primary is very small, but if you're not even voting, you're not even doing the least of your duties. So I would encourage people to do as much as you can. I mean, we're supposed to be political animals. This is democracy. We talk about the issues. We talk about the people because we care about our society. We want to bring about a better society, and we do it through the democratic process, through voting in the elections. So I think these are important, you know, these are important times. People are listening to the truth. People really want to hear the truth. Trump is you can actually learn what Hillary Clinton could be up to by the 1952 Democratic presidential election. So you have Harry S. Truman, the president. He was in there for 3 years after FDR had died. He had won the first campaign, 48, and now he's running in 1952. He gets beaten. He gets beaten by the Democrats, so he has an insurgency right up under his own ass, and he winds up losing he loses in the New Hampshire primary. So this guy named Key Favre. So Key Favre, he would campaign in a coonskin cap and often in a dog sled. Key Favre won an electrifying victory in the New Hampshire primary, defeating President Harry S. Truman, the sitting president of the U.S. Truman then withdrew his bid for re-election. So that stopped the presidency. Kefauver stopped the presidency. Kefauver would eventually win 12 of the 15. Kefauver didn't just win the one Estace Kefauver. He didn't just win the New Hampshire primary. He wound up winning 12 of 15 primaries in 52, losing 3 to favorite son candidates. But he received 3.1 million votes in all. For all intents and purposes, he won the primary vote. He won the people's vote. But eventually, the 1952 Democratic presidential nominee will become the Illinois governor, Adlai Stevenson. So Harry S. Truman, while losing the primary, picked Adlai Stevenson, and then the party bosses at the Democratic National Convention got their guy to win. They got Adlai Stevenson to win, while Kefauver, who had done the hard work of actually defeating the president, winning all those primaries, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Adlai Stevenson only got 78,000 votes. Kefauver got 3.1 million votes, but the primaries were not at that time the main method of delegate selection. Kefauver entered the convention with a few hundred votes still needed for a majority of the delegates. So if you don't win enough primary delegates, if you don't secure enough delegates by the time the convention happens, the majority of the delegates, then that means that it's still open. It's still open to anybody can win. So, it's kind of bullshit, because the will of the people, my God, fucking Kefauver got 3.1 million votes, beat Adlai Stevenson, 78,000. It's like they didn't even fucking try. But then they had the choice of the Democratic political bosses, because of their sort of jockeying for position, Adlai Stevenson, who was Truman's successor. So Truman wanted Adlai Stevenson to win, and he wound up winning, even though he lost all the primary elections. Stevenson, a one-term governor who was up for re-election in 1952, had resisted calls to enter the race, but he was nominated anyways by a draft Stevenson. He had an eloquent keynote speech on the opening night of the convention, draft Stevenson. Then Sparkman was selected as the nominee for vice president. Adlai Stevenson loses the general election to Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Republican nominee. So by their jockeying and they're fucking pissed off at this, they should have given Kefauver. Kefauver was the one that took down the king. Kefauver should have been the Democratic nominee. He had more votes, primary votes. He had the popular vote. This is something that Hillary can do to Bernie. Bernie can win all these elections, get to the Democratic National Convention, and they just pay off some of their buddies. Hell, they're probably figuring out, which these people that they need to pay off. That's politics, right? That's fucking dirty, right? That's slick. And they're willing to sabotage campaigns, and they're willing to lie. So it comes down to 4,400 people. It doesn't come down to the American people. It comes down to 4,400. Now, the biggest controversy that I remember from the 2008 presidential primary, you had Michigan and Florida who broke the rules. Nobody was allowed to vote before February 5th. Only the 4 states, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, and that's it. Those are the only 4 special states. They're in the top tier. They matter more than all the other states. But Michigan and Florida wanted some standing. They wanted to actually matter when it comes to these primary elections. And so Michigan moved its primary to January 15th, and then Florida had moved it towards the end of January, and that would have made it the 3rd. Nevada caucuses was on the 19th, so that means Michigan was the 3rd presidential primary. Well, it got crazy. The DNC said that Michigan was out of it. They didn't matter. But Michigan said, well, we're going to keep the names on the ballot. So Kucinich tried to get his name off the ballot, but Clinton and Dodd just said, fuck it, now we want to stay on the ballot. So Obama didn't even campaign down there. None of them were, allowed to campaign after the thing had done. So it was more like just beauty contest. Voter turnout was real low. But after the win in Florida, Hillary Clinton flies to Fort Lauderdale on the night of the election and says, thank you all for the tremendous victory. So she claims victory, and then eventually, because Obama and Hillary was very close with the elections later on, this became a matter. Michigan and Florida said, well, we want something. And eventually they did settle on getting half the delegates. So, Florida and Michigan got half the delegates to do their thing. I'm not sure if Hillary won all the Florida delegates or not, but there was a compromise. So Florida and Michigan took a risk, they took a chance, and they were taxed, but they weren't kicked out. So I Eventually, the DNC says that half the votes will go to Florida delegates, including superdelegates in May 31st, 2008. And then Michigan delegates were also given half votes. 69 delegates went to Hillary and 59 went to Barack. So Hillary won. Hillary wound up winning Michigan, even though Barack Obama wasn't even on the ballot in Michigan because he was actually playing by the rules. And somehow Dodd, Mike Gravel, and Dennis Kucinich, all of them were able to get their names on the ballot, but not Barack Obama. So, they all actually had a shot to take Michigan. Barack Obama didn't really have a chance at all. His name wasn't even on the ballot, nor was Joe Biden, John Edwards, or Bill Richardson. So, I think this primary season is fucked. We should just have one big Super Tuesday with all the states voting one single day. Let's just drop it down. Let's see what happens. Just like on. I think that's the best way to do it because essentially what you have now, if you're Delaware or even California, a major big state like California, but Kentucky, my home state, even if you're Kentucky, you have to wait until it's a really close primary and you're one of the last people, so you're not even relevant. You're not even relevant to the end, and the only reason that Kentucky was relevant in 2008 was because Hillary wanted to keep on, put the pressure on Obama to eventually give them a good job. She had already lost. Mathematically, it was impossible for her to win, so it didn't matter in Kentucky if she won or lost. It just gave her more leverage. And so it didn't matter. The election, it didn't matter then, that year. It's never mattered. It's not like it's all up to Kentucky. What is Kentucky voters thinking? It's what is Ohio or Iowa? What is New Hampshire thinking? So if you're Kentucky, you would want to move that primary date up. You would want to. I would break the rules. You'll get half of your delegates back, right? Just like we saw in 2009. For the most part, you will be relevant. And so, do you want to be relevant? Do you want to matter? The primary voter has very little bit of vote at all. So if you're not even one of the four main voters, and then you're just a primary voter for a number 40 state, and then eventually, maybe your vote will go to the delegate that goes to the convention that votes for you, right? Maybe the Electoral College will vote our ways. Don't think that Hillary Clinton will be corrupt and to do some shady shit. You already saw what she tried to do with the, with that whole fucking bullshit scandal with the voter database. But just look at the Michigan primaries. In Michigan in 2008, she didn't take her name off like the DNC had told her. She wound up winning, even though Obama wasn't on there, and she got all those delegates. So they will fucking pull shit like this. That's what they do. They know how to cheat. They don't know how to fight fair and win. They're the ruling class. They're the 1%. So let's go back to the year 2000. What were the Democrats doing then? Well, you had Al Gore, right? And Al Gore and that Lieberman, right? Fucking Lieberman, right? That's how democratic and liberal Gore was. He picks Lieberman, Joe Lieberman. Yeah, right. I'm sure they've been, I guess it wouldn't have been a imperialistic war policy. Bullshit with that war hawk as VP. But you only have two candidates. You only have Gore and Bradley. So Bill Bradley of New Jersey versus Albert Gore, the vice president, the one who had been in Bill Clinton's, cabinet, been watching the whole thing. So essentially it looks like Gore's going to get it, but Bill Bradley is running as a liberal, as an actual liberal. And that's what happens with these Democrats. They don't run as themselves. If you have a choice between a fake Republican and a real Republican, they will vote for the real Republican every time. Every time. Would you rather have the real want to blame Ralph Nader for Al Gore's loss, but Al Gore lost it himself. Those were never his votes to begin with. But look what Bill Bradley was campaigning as the liberal alternative. He was taking positions to the left of Gore on a number of issues, including gun control, universal health care, and campaign finance reform. Get the money out of politics, universal health care. On the issue of taxes, Bradley trumpeted his sponsorship of the Tax Reform Act of 1986, which significantly cut taxes while abolishing dozens of loopholes. He voiced his belief that the best possible tax code would be one with low rates and no loopholes, but he refused to rule out the idea of raising taxes to pay for his health care program. Everybody might need to be charged a buck, right? On public education, Bill Bradley pushed for increased federal funding for schools under Title I, as well as the expansion of the Head Start program. He further promised to bring 60,000 new teachers into the education system annually. I remember that Nader had published, here's 10 issues, Al Gore, popular issues. Here are 10 issues. Pick any one of these issues. You don't want them voting for Nader? Then be a populist. Actually be a Democrat. But instead, they run as these fucking fake Republicans. They're acting like Bush, and then Bush wound up just took the whole damn thing anyways. College scholarships to anyone who agreed to become a teacher after graduating, so he's good on education. He wanted to make child poverty a significant issue in the campaign. Voted against the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act, better known as the Welfare Reform Act, which he said would result in even higher poverty levels. He promised to repeal it as president. He also promised to address the minimum wage, expand the earned income tax credit, allow single parents on welfare to keep their child support payments, make the dependent care tax credit refundable, build support homes for pregnant teenagers, enroll 400,000 more children in Head Start, and increase the availability of food stamps. Bradley would have beat George W. Bush. Bill Bradley was, he was a liberal. He was unabashed. Look, you're a Democrat. If you want, the voters want a conservative, they're going to vote for the Republicans. If they want a liberal, they're going to vote for the Democrats. Just be who you are. Quit pretending to be something that you're not. Running to the right and acting like you're like Mr. fucking fascist. No, I'm more fascist than Trump. Is that the game we're going to be playing? Is that what we're going to see Hillary do? So eventually, the end of the Democratic presidential primary in 2000, you have Gore, who wins in the Iowa caucus. He got 64%. Bradley got 35% in New Hampshire. He won, but barely 52% to 47%. And then on Super Tuesday, he just got hammered. Bradley failed to carry the majority of delegates in a single state, so he withdrew from the race on March 9th. So it goes to Super Tuesday. That's what, in 2000, it went to Super Tuesday. So I think Super Tuesday is one of the biggest, litmus tests to see. Tuesday is the line of demarcation, Iowa and New Hampshire, all that. There's a lot of buzz behind it and to see who's winning. But those states have their own particular culture, their own particular things that they like, right? I don't know if New Hampshire, Nevada, Las Vegas, does Las Vegas, speak for me? I don't know. But ultimately, it matters, just to look how these, look at Jack Conway. Jack Conway in Kentucky. They went ahead and endorsed him a year out of the way. The Democratic establishment was so scared they went ahead and backed this moderate, and the moderate acted like a fucking Republican, acted conservative, and then he lost. He was not himself. He wasn't. And so when the Democratic establishment does that, they're so scared of losing the seat, right? It's a Democratic seat. They're so scared, instead of actually nominating a strong candidate, a person who might be a little risky, but that risk is going to pay off, because imagine. So everybody tries to think of themselves as some sort of pragmatic moderate. Oh, I'm just a moderate. I see this extreme, I see that extreme. I'll go in the middle. Well, unfortunately, American politics, the actual debate isn't like out to here. The scope of debate is like right here. Do we bomb Syria with boots on the ground or with no boots on the ground? That's the argument. That's what we're talking about. And so that's not a very big scope of debate. But essentially, the voters will pick a authentic Republican than a fake Republican every time. They will do that every time. What would you rather have? A fake Republican or an authentic Republican? Republicans suck, right? They're totally shitty, but, they say, here, this is what I believe, and here are my reasons for it. And then Democrats get up there, and they're very, namby-pamby, fucking Gore, just go on and on and on and say nothing. People will go for the authentic over the fake every single time. So be real, be authentic. Bradley would have beat George W. Bush in 2000. Bill Bradley actually was liberal on different issues. And so, instead of believing all the bullshit, they run to the left, they run to the right, and then they're triangulating. Fuck that triangulating shit. That's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now with Hillary Clinton and the Democratic establishment. They're clinging on, no, we got our Hillary, we got our thing. She's a good candidate. She's strong. She'll be able to beat him. The polls are saying that Bernie would defeat Trump more than Hillary would. So, Bernie is a better candidate. He's smarter. He's better, and he's, imagine the country we would have with Bernie at the helm. That not only, allows socialists to feel at home and welcome, and it's not such a dirty word anymore, but it could become our president. It's the last hope. We've been capitalistic our entire lives. Let's try some infrastructure. Let's see if fixing our infrastructure, education, healthcare, child, care, if all that